It is 7:02 in the morning on December 7th, 1941. At a radar station on the northern tip of Oahu, two young Army privates see something they have never seen before. A blip. An enormous one. More than 50 aircraft, 137 miles out, closing fast on Hawaii. They pick up the phone. They report it. And the officer on the other end tells them not to worry about it. 48 minutes later, the first bombs fall on Pearl Harbor. By the time it is over, 2,403 Americans are dead. 18 ships are sunk or crippled, and the United States is at war. History calls it a surprise attack, a bolt from the blue, the day America never saw coming. But that is the part that isn't true, because America saw a great deal coming. The warnings were there. Some of them were on paper, decoded, and sitting on desks in Washington. The real story of Pearl Harbor isn't that no one knew. It's how much they knew, and why it changed nothing. Pearl Harbor is remembered as a failure of intelligence. The enemy was silent, the attack was invisible, and America was caught asleep. But that story skips something uncomfortable. In this video, we're not going to tell you the attack was inevitable, and we're not going to tell you it was a conspiracy. We're going to do something harder. We're going to walk through the actual warnings, the intercepts, the radar contact, the submarine sunk an hour before the first bomb fell, and show you exactly where each one was lost, dismissed, or buried in the noise. Because the tragedy of Pearl Harbor is not that the information didn't exist, it's that it existed, and the system built to act on it failed at almost every single step. And once you see how, you'll never watch that morning the same way again. By the autumn of 1941, the United States and Japan are on a collision course, and almost everyone in Washington knows it. Japan's war in China has stalled. American oil and steel embargoes are strangling its economy. Japanese planners calculate that within 2 years their fleet will run out of fuel. To them, the choice is not war or peace. It is war now, while they still can, or slow surrender. And America has an extraordinary advantage. American cryptographers have already broken Japan's highest diplomatic cipher. The program is called Magic. Every day, decoded Japanese messages flow to a tiny circle of officials in Washington. They are reading Tokyo's mail. In the intercepts, the signs pile up. Tokyo orders its embassies to burn code books. It sets a hard deadline for negotiations, then extends it by exactly 4 days, to November 29th, and adds a chilling line. After that, things are automatically going to happen. Washington knows war is coming. What it does not know is where. Everyone assumes the blow will fall thousands of miles away. The Philippines, Malaya, the Dutch oil fields of the East Indies. Hawaii is considered too far, too strong, too obvious. Pearl Harbor is where the fleet is safe. That single assumption is the crack that everything else falls through. Now watch the warnings arrive, one by one, in the final weeks. Warning 1. As early as January 1941, the American ambassador in Tokyo cables Washington with a rumor from a Peruvian diplomat. In the event of war, Japan plans a surprise mass attack on Pearl Harbor. It is filed, evaluated, and dismissed as implausible. Warning 2. In the Magic Intercepts, Tokyo begins asking its Honolulu consulate for something strange: the exact locations of warships inside Pearl Harbor, divided into a grid. This is not normal diplomatic curiosity. It is targeting data. The message is decoded, but in the flood of traffic, its significance is never flagged to the commanders in Hawaii. Warning 3. On November 27th, Washington sends the Pacific commanders a blunt cable. This is a war warning. Japanese aggression is expected within days, but it points them south and west toward the Philippines. Admiral Kimmel and General Short read it and prepare for sabotage by local agents, not an air raid. Short lines the aircraft up wingtip to wingtip on the runways, easier to guard and easier to destroy. Warning 4 comes on the morning itself. At 6:45 a.m., the destroyer USS Ward spots
Squadron
a
1,
midget
prepare for
submarine
launch.
trying to sneak into the harbor.
Final checks on the Wildcats now.
The first American shots of the Pacific War, more than an hour before the attack. The report climbs slowly up the chain of command, meeting doubt at every level. And warning 5, that radar blip. 50-plus aircraft inbound. The privates reported. The duty officer, expecting a flight of American B-17 from the mainland, says the words that end the chain, "Don't worry about it." So the warnings were real. Every one of them. But here is the question that turns this from a story of bad luck into something much darker. If America was reading Japan's coded messages every single day, why did the one warning that mattered never reach the men who could have stopped it? The answer is not a traitor. It is something far more ordinary and far more dangerous. Stay with me, because what happens in the next 4 minutes explains not just Pearl Harbor, but almost every intelligence disaster that has happened since. The failure of Pearl Harbor has a name that intelligence officers still use today. They call it the signal and the noise. America was not short of information. It was drowning in it. Thousands of intercepts, rumors, reports, and sightings poured in every week. The true warnings, the grid map of the harbor, the deadline, the burning of codebooks, were real signals. But they were buried inside a mountain of noise, competing with 100 other threats in a dozen other places. And the system had no way to pull them together. The men decoding magic in Washington did not command the fleet. The commanders in Hawaii were not cleared to see the raw intercepts. Each piece of the puzzle sat in a different room, held by a different person, none of whom could see the whole picture. No one was assembling the mosaic. Now the cost comes due. At 7:48 a.m., 183 Japanese aircraft break over Oahu. Torpedo bombers skim the water toward Battleship Row. Dive bombers roll in over the airfields, where the American planes sit lined up in neat, helpless rows. At 8:06, an armor-piercing bomb punches through the deck of the USS Arizona and detonates the forward magazine. The blast lifts the 30,000-ton battleship out of the water. In seconds, 1,177 men are gone, nearly half the American dead of the entire day, in a single instant. A second wave follows. When the last plane turns for home, 8 battleships are hit, 4 of them sunk. 2,403 Americans are dead. The Pacific Fleet, on paper, is broken, but the greatest failure of the day belongs to the attackers. The Japanese came for the American aircraft carriers, the one weapon that would decide the entire Pacific War. And by pure chance, all 3 were at sea. Not one was in the harbor. Japan crippled the fleet of yesterday's weapons and left tomorrow's untouched. The next day, President Roosevelt stands before Congress and calls December 7th, a date which will live in infamy. Within an hour, America is at war. The nation that Japan had hoped to shock into negotiating instead unites overnight. Recruitment offices fill. The industrial giant that had stayed on the sidelines for 2 years wakes up, and within 4 years it is producing more war material than every other nation on Earth combined. And the commanders, Admiral and General Short, are relieved of command within weeks, accused of dereliction of duty. For the rest of their lives, they argue with real evidence that Washington had warnings it never passed down to them. The blame for Pearl Harbor has been argued over for more than 80 years, and it has never fully settled on any one man, because the failure did not belong to one man. It belonged to a system that could gather the truth and could not connect it. That is the real lesson buried in Battleship Row. The danger is rarely that we don't know. It's that the thing we need to know is sitting somewhere in the pile, and no one is reading it in time. Pearl Harbor forced America into a two-ocean war, and within 6 months, in a single day off a tiny atoll in the middle of the Pacific, those same untouched aircraft carriers would sink 4 Japanese carriers and turn the entire war around. Next week, the Battle of Midway, and the 10 minutes that decided the Pacific. Subscribe, and I'll show you how a broken code and a stroke of impossible luck changed the fate of the world.